A wonderful reference we can use to explore how that kind of trail elbow moves in swing is very much exploring the path the elbow moves back on and then relative to the path it moves down. And so the caveats here being it's very much obviously dependent on the path it moves back on. So someone's elbow moves a long way this way or very much that way in backswing. For sure there'd be tremendous differences and adaptations in downswing. So again, allowing for all things somewhat being equal, that if the path the elbow moves back on is kind of somewhere where, for example, the player is aspiring to kind of move it through backswing, invariably what you'll see in the more accomplished and more advanced and more established players is the path the elbow comes down on will be very similar to the path the elbow moves back on. So looking more, say for example, often problematic movements, so these very common, often using that very almost informal definition, we'll often see the elbow and downswing a long way behind us or kept very narrow, and then as you start to approach it, but the elbow kind of moves away from us. So in some ways, the path the elbow moves down on and then through on is very different, say for example, than the path that elbow moves back on. So actually looking at it now, say through the 3D example, we'll see here the red line being displayed on screen is the path the elbow moves back on. You'll then see the orange line then, as they start to move in downswing, how the orange line gets a long way behind them. So that very evident narrowing, steepening, club gets kind of behind, and then post-impact then, how much the elbow wants to move in essence in front of its path and backswing. So very much play with this reference. Mirrors can be a wonderful way of establishing that kind of real-time live kind of visual feedback. We know visually over half of our brain is allocated to vision and movement. Our visual-based system provides almost 80% of our sensory feedback. The idea often being that where we look is where we move. Our eyes drive our behavior. So the eyes and vision in some ways are still our dominant kind of resource or kind of sensory feedback when looking at to explore how we move. So kind of using that kind of mirror, for example, almost take that kind of reference to the path my elbow goes back on as I start to move in downswing. And it's very much encouraging and actively allowing then the path the elbow moves down on to kind of somewhat closely then match in track the path that went back on.